Who loves a good bookstore? I definitely do, and if you are like me, you are in store for a treat today because I found in some afternoon walks around Daikanyama an amazingly cool bookstore called Shin Saka Bashi Books. A bookstore that caught my attention, that I eventually ventured my way into and found a little piece of heaven that I am going to share with you today. Consider yourself lucky if you are a fan of a good bookstore because this is one of the best I've ever found in Tokyo. I came upon this place while walking up this giant hill that once crossed a river that's no longer here, and this little sign on the front of the shop explains that this hill has been here for 100 years. That really piqued my curiosity about the shop, and it's just lovely design and its little patio and its curved window display, and some of the books and artworks that were being displayed in the window caught my attention. And I thought, oh, okay, we have some interesting artworks here, and food and art, Rotanico and Hotel Kana, and suddenly it was this book, Henri Cartier-Bresson's Paris Revisited, that caught my attention and made me want to go inside. Now, if you know Henri Cartier-Bresson, you know that he is the genius behind the Decisive Moment. Surely there must be more photography books in here. So I came into the shop and found a really lovely bookshop that totally came to life right when I stepped inside. And I met the really lovely manager of the shop and said, "Hi, what's going on here? What's this about?" And she said, "Welcome to the bookshop." And I said, "Wow, it looks interesting. I can see books about art, books about film, and books about cooking, and books about fashion, and books about all kinds of things." I said, "What's going on in this bookshop?" And Mrs. Ono, who was here at the time, said to me, "This is a bookstore about philosophy." And I said, "Oh, okay, I'm in." I poked around, and what I discovered was a treasure trove of gems, and I am going to share them with you today. So let's have a look. Okay, we have some customers coming in and out during business hours, and I want to be mindful to, not photograph anybody who doesn't want to be photographed. But what I want to do today is I want to show you the space, and I want to show you some of the things that caught my attention, and then I want to kind of go through the exhibition that's happening here. But please do check out Shin Saka Bashi Books. There's their Instagram, and you can actually use this space. You can reach out to the spot and use the space if you're interested in using this. You'll notice that there's a table here, an island in the middle with tables and chairs on it, and it seems like the space is very alive. And if you go to Instagram and you look around, you'll see that there's people coming here to gather, to talk about books, to talk about the subjects that are in these books, I would assume, and it seems like an incredibly interesting collective of people. Beautiful, sort of mid-century designed lamps and fixtures, and I noticed there was a lamp over there on the wall with a beautiful braided cord. This book caught my attention because it has a Sinar Swiss-made Norma, which is like the camera that I have. This is called a P1, and I have a P3, and the P1 has the nickname of Norma because of how beautiful of a camera it is. It looks like Norma Jean. And this is Domon Ken, the namesake for a photography prize in Japan that is something akin to the Pritzker Prize in architecture. When I found my way further around the table, I started to see more things that I really wanted to share. Hello, Goodbye, the Beatles in Tokyo, On Wall Street, architectural photographs of Lower Manhattan, Bowie Treasures, Ferrari, and suddenly I realized I had stumbled into something very, very special. There was some music playing, and I noticed that they had these beautiful speakers that I've seen before in Organic Music, Shimizu shop. I'll have to leave a link to the maker, but these beautiful cube-shaped geometric speakers projecting music in all directions. They look beautifully designed, and over here in the corner, I saw a lovely little Fostex amp and a little tube amp here. I thought, okay, so there's more interesting stuff happening. I started to wonder a little bit about the shop, and I was informed that it started just in 2023 in March 28th. So it's only been here a couple of years. A beautiful artwork by a Japanese artist, and I started to take a look at some of the top shelf Yoko Ono, One Woman Show, The Kitchen. I began to notice a bunch of books about food. Sam Haskins, a famous 60s fashion photographer. Cowboy Kate, that's a highly collected fashion book. And whoa, Dennis Hopper's photographs. I've always wanted to see a book by Dennis Hopper, and I've never actually seen one, and there are a couple of here. I saw down below, Warhol and Mapplethorpe, the word punk, Andy Warhol, Norma Jean, more Dennis Hopper, Star Maker, Chasing Mountain Light, and Fishing, and Stephen King, and Brutus, and Japanese Nikka whiskey, and these beautiful sculptures. I saw the words Workshop Moo, which I've seen in the covers of some records before. That's when I started to take a little bit deeper interest in what is going on here. And that is when I reached out to the shop to see if I could come in here and share this video on Tokyo Record Style. And I was very happy that after a couple of correspondences that I had with Kitamura-san, who I'll introduce you to later, she welcomed me into the shop and told me a little bit about the concept of what is going on here. And I was so moved by it. What I thought was going to be a short 15-20 minute video, I think will be a deep dive into a love for books. This is a book lover's bookstore. I think you'll be really excited to hear about what they're doing as the concept here. Now, it's very close to my office, and so on afternoon break time moments where I needed to walk around the block once or twice, I came back to Shin Saka Bashi Bookstore, and every time I would meet a different shopkeeper who had heard of me from the day before that I visited. And after 3 or 4 visits, I came to know 3 or 4 of the shopkeepers, and little by little, they began to explain to me how this space is being used, how this space is being loved. I got more and more excited about sharing it with you. I want to explain to you what's going on here in these cubbies. It's a really interesting and beautiful concept. It's going on here on both walls. It's actually a semi-permanent installation. It's living and evolving, and because the shop has only been here for a couple of years, it has not changed that many times, but little by little, there are new exhibitions that are coming into this installation and some that are moving out. Now, there is also a back room here that is private. It says there on the wall. And I noticed that there's a little island back here where I noticed a stovetop. I began to be a little bit curious about what's going on back there. I saw lots of different cookbooks, and it turns out that the owner of Shin Saka Bashi Bookstore is a lovely character named Tezuka-san. And Tezuka-san has a deep interest in cuisine and food and fine dining and cheesecake, and I will share a little bit more about him later. But lots of the people who are connected to this bookstore are connected through cuisine and art and design and things that make our lives a little bit more enriched. How about we just get right into it? Without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you one by one each of the different shelves, and I'm going to tell you what's happening. Each of one of these shelves is a friend of Tezuka-san, a friend of Shin Saka Bashi Bookstore, and each one of these shelves has 10 books from their histories, from their lives that have played important roles in informing their sensibilities about living, sensibilities about creating, sensibilities about designing. I ended up taking a deep dive into each of the different artists, most of whom I didn't actually know by name. And considering that there were so many noteworthy artists and designers, I thought it would be a great chance for not only me to level up my knowledge of Japanese artists and tastemakers, but also to share with you some of these luminary characters, one of whom I just met a few moments earlier, who just happened to be walking by. In fact, the very first artist who I'm going to talk about right now. Okay, so friends, I think there are 15 artists and designers and thinkers and philosophers and lovers of books in this, and this is gonna be a deep dive. And if it's not your jam, don't worry about it, but I was so interested and I gained so much knowledge and I was inspired to read so many books that were featured in these artists' recommendations that I'm really excited to share. What I hope I'll be able to do is not only share with you about the artist and the curator of this particular shelf, but I'll be able to link all the various books that the artist has put in the recommended list. Let's get into it. I just met the first artist out here on the streets of Tokyo, Kamya-san. Kamya Takahisa. Very cool gentleman who is a designer, ran a creative studio for many years, and I think who just pivoted and now has become a conceptual artist. And we have here not only the books that helped inform his creative studio, but also some of his artworks. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Kamya-san. In 1978, at the age of 27, he founded the design company Super Planning and started out as a designer, producer, and entrepreneur. He captivated many people by producing the globally loved character Mr. Friendly. This is one of his characters. Do you know Mr. Friendly? Designed here by Kamya-san. He has been awarded with many good design awards, the Sansan Sanichi Award, and he has been recognized as a big contributor to the arts. He was asked by Tezuka-san, the owner, to select 10 books that he might be able to recommend to us, books that helped inform his design sensibility. And he says here, selecting books is like exposing the inside of one's brain to others. He was a little bit private about it, which I can relate to. You know, you don't necessarily want to show your colors of all the books that you're reading. But he said after a long career of running a design company, he thought, why not share with you some of the books that not only helped inform his creative and business decisions, but that are now also informing his decisions as a creative artist. He said that since his first trip to Europe in '71 while working in apparel, the books that I picked up on many of my trips to Europe and America and the knowledge I gained have become my original landscape. I love that notion of books becoming who we are. He's chosen 10 books here that have influenced his evolution of aesthetic sense and values. What do you think, he asks. I'll rattle off a few of the books, and again, I'll leave all of them listed below in the show notes. My Philosophy by Andy Warhol, a classic pop art autobiographical book. Workshop Mood refers to a workshop that was a legendary avant-garde Japanese creative collective in the 60s and 70s. They experimented in sound, theater, happenings. You might have a record that has the word produced by Workshop Mood. Post by Ryu Murakami. Central Apartment Story by Shinpei Asai. I'm going to ask you to remember that name. Shinpei Asai. He will come back around in this video. And Kamya-san has done a collaboration in recent years with Shinpei Asai. You will find out more about him later. This was a photographer and essayist. His book Central Apartment Story is a nostalgic portrait of the 60s and 70s Tokyo student culture. And Feeling Like the Beatles by Shinpei Asai, 2 books from the photographer. Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach, a massive worldwide bestseller. You know it, hugely influential. I need to reread this. I read it when I was 13, 14 years old. Some of the sentiments that have been brought out in this exhibition have been about rereading books that we read in our youth, and this is one that I definitely need to reread. So those are some of the 10 books recommended by Takahisa Kamya. I want to spotlight a little bit of his artwork. He has this really interesting design where he takes objects and repurposes them using this blue cellophane wrap, which is really interesting. He's done the Empire State Building, the Statue of Liberty. This is also one of his interesting pieces. Ask, I probably shouldn't touch. I really like them. I noticed today that he was wearing blue eyeglasses, and so maybe he has a particular sentiment for blue. And I also noticed that this lovely piece on the wall on here might also be by Kamya-san. I can't be sure, but considering that his medium is plastic PET bottles, and this one seems to be wrapped in a similar way, I think that that piece is also by Kamya-san. So Kamya-san, thank you for getting us started, and thanks again for being so kind to me out on the street. It was really nice to meet you. I hope that we can meet again someday. Okay. The next artist who has curated a shelf is Shinsuke Kawahara, who is a Japanese artist who lives between Japan and France. He was born in Kyoto in '83, and he went to Musashi Art University, where lots of my friends have gone, Musabi. And he has worked with some amazing brands, including Hermes. And if you know about one of the perfumes, Rose Ikebana, that is one of the projects that he worked on. I believe he designed the bottle for that. What a great client. He has a really interesting collection of books that he's curated. You'll notice that one of them here is The Dawn of the Bunny Suicides by Andy Riley. Kawahara-san is an artist who uses rabbits, I think, in some of his motifs. And here is one of his pieces, and this is a dragon that he has illustrated, and I see the little rabbit up there on the corner. Kawahara-san mentioned in his write-up here that maybe I'm just trying to look cool, but I've admired the way of life of such cool men since I was a child, whether it be F. Scott Fitzgerald, Mishima, Tanizaki, or Hemingway. It's not a matter of appearance, but what they say, how they behave, how they choose things, and in their entire lives, and the freedom that lies beneath it is important. So among his collection, he's got some luminary, legendly cool guys among the artists that he's chosen, including F. Scott Fitzgerald's short stories, Manyoshu. Manyoshu is a 8th century Japanese poet who is extremely influential on Japanese literature of today. I would think that he would be very hard to read without having a scholarly student of his explain some of his works to you. But actually, Kawahara-san said that his mother loved Manyoshu, and that when he was young and living in Nikko, his mother used to take him to poetry readings. He said, I participated in poetry gatherings led by Manyo scholar Inukai Takahashi from my childhood in Nara. Another book that is on Kawahara's list is Eulogie de l'Ombre, and it is the translation of In Praise of Shadows by Tanizaki-san, which was only translated in the 70s, but it is a book about Japanese sensibilities that I read repeated times. It is a book that we should all read at least once. So the fact that there is a French translation of it that Kawahara-san gives to all of his French-speaking friends gives me hope that there is also an English version out there for me to read from now. I can see so many of the Japanese design and art aesthetics that are probably explained in some beautiful poetic way here in Tanizaki's In Praise of Shadows. Ah, I just found the English translation hiding out behind it. Wonderful. I might have to take this home. Okay, I will list Shinsuke Kawahara-san's selections in the show notes, but thank you for sharing your collection of 10 books. Ooh, we can get some Japanese whiskey here. Maybe go for a little snowboarding trip as well. Thank you, Kawahara-san. Okay, the next shelf here is curated by Kojiro Nagumosan, creative director, designer of Beams. You know Beams. Beams is one of the coolest select shops in Japan. In fact, Beams puts the select in select shops. It's a fashion store, but it's also a lifestyle store, and it has many goods and wares that we might find in our daily lives, from wallets and wristwatches and jewelry and scarves and maybe even presents for our loved ones. Not just fashion, but furniture and lifestyle as well. Some of the books that he put forth are really interesting. Here is his shelf. I was really amazed to read about him. I actually want to share with you a little bit about his professional history, and then I want to read to you his entire write-up about this shelf because it's very emotional, I think. And I found it over and over again in these various descriptions, and that is what compelled me to go a little bit deeper on this bookstore. Nagumo-san joined Beams in '85, and he has been in charge of the furniture department and the Beams Modern Living section since the early '90s. He's also been involved with British bespoke tailors and shoemakers while he was overseeing the visual merchandising and directing the interior design of all the Beams stores. That's quite an influential guy. So that is the kind of relationships and friendships that Shin Saka Bashi Bookstore is attracting. That's a very cool flex. Not only is he involved with the visual direction of Beams, but he's also a member of the Beams Directors Bank. I imagine the investment wink and the big business. He's made such a good impression on his many years working as a designer that now he is part of the directing where the company is going. And he says here in his write-up about his shelf, in the early 80s when I was young, I was fascinated by the sound of foreign books and visited Reina in Ginza. There was maybe a famous bookstore in Ginza called Reina, Shimada Foreign Books in Aoyama. My thoughts wandered to foreign countries that I had not seen yet. In addition to seeking information about fashion, which is my job, I also had unexpected encounters at bookstores. That's a great little note. In fact, I've met a lovely customer who was in here today who I just had a little chat with. Bookstores are great places for chance encounters. Later, when I began to travel abroad frequently, I stopped by bookstores in the city and found photo books that were not imported to Japan and brought them back with a heavy heart. Does he mean that he expatriated these books from their home countries, or was he just so excited about bringing these wonderful books back to his home in Japan? I was stimulated from visual books on fashion, architecture, designs, and crafts. But as my interest deepened, I wanted more knowledge, so I read and researched literature and even became interested in more abstract philosophies. From books that express sensations by replacing them with words such as Structure of Life by Shuzo Kuki and In Praise of Shadows, mentioned again, by Junichiro Tanizaki, I learned important things that support the beauty of the visuals. And the great thing about books is that when you read them again after some time has passed, you get to know them again. You will almost always find new realizations, which is so true. We should go back and revisit some of those books that we read in our youth. I have selected books that have influenced me and given me the opportunity to think from various eras. Although most of them were published decades ago, they are classics that stimulate universal sensibilities that are still relevant today. And some of the books in his list here, I mentioned In Praise of Shadows, The Structure of Iki. You keep hearing about Ikigai. This might be the same Iki in Ikigai. The Breath. A philosophical exploration of the Edo period concept of Iki, which is aesthetic chic, stylishness, sophistication. Thinking Hints by Hideo Kobayashi, Law and Beauty in the Dharma of Beauty and the Pure Land of Beauty by Muneyoshi Yanagi, who was the founder of the Minkei folk craft movement, a very famous Japanese art movement. Garden Collection of Works, Tongue. These are all Japanese artists, and again, I will leave the links to Nagumo's recommendations in the show notes. Bag by Hideyuki Oka, Japanese Color Name Encyclopedia, an illustrated dictionary of traditional Japanese color names. That sounds super fascinating. And Camera Works, I didn't see that one, but I really want to check it out, by David Hockney, a photo collection of Hockney's Joiners, large photographic collages that reinvent space and time, a landmark in 20th century photography. Thank you, Nagumo-san, for sharing your amazing list here and your sensibility from beams. Okay, the next shelf here is curated by Takamasa Tokoan, who is the owner of the super awesome, famous underground nightclub Unit in Daikanyama. I was very surprised and impressed to read this. Unit is a place where I used to go dancing all the time back in the day. It was easy to gather that this was who it would be when I saw some of the selection of books and artists that he chose for this shelf. Takamasa Tokoan not only runs Unit, but he's also a creative director and a curator and a designer. About his selection of books, he says here, ever since I was old enough to know things, I had a particular interest in music, art, and fashion. I was happy that I thought and acted differently from my friends and acquaintances, and was extremely annoyed at being forced to do the same things as other people around me. Hobbies gave me freedom, and books were always my guide to my new hobbies. Hobbies stimulated further interests, and I was able to make many wonderful acquaintances through them as I went through life. I continued to receive further inspiration from experts in each field, and the joy of learning about unknown worlds grows every day. Although they are not necessary for life, books fill the gaps in our hearts. I love that. And provide us with infinite imagination and suggestions for an ideal life every day. I feel that the clues can be found in these 10 books that I have selected this time. So that's the kind of intention and sentimentality that we're getting in these curated selections. Some of Takamasa Tokoan's recommendations are advertising character collectibles. Okay, this one right here. A collection guide to 20th century advertising mascots and characters. Chamber of Curiosities. An exhibition catalog documenting the University of Tokyo's eclectic museum of collections. He's got, I think, a magazine here. Casa Brutus Collection of Residential Space Studies, Spring 1984. Surprise House, Katsura, Tradition and Creation in Japanese Architecture by Walter Gropius and Kenzo Tange. Tange is the famous Japanese architect who I think was the first Japanese winner of the Pritzker Prize. This says that this book is a landmark study from 1960 of the Katsura Imperial Villa, blending Bauhaus modernism, that's what Gropius talks about, and Japanese tradition, which Tange writes about. Hugely important in architectural history. So I think I found a lot of books in these collections that are analyses and breakdowns of books. It's some classic content that is synthesized with a modern sensibility, and I think that is what this book is looking at. He also has Stephen King, Four Seasons, which contains Rita Hayworth, Shawshank Redemption, and Stand By Me. So thank you, Takamasa-san, for these great recommendations and for providing me so many nights of entertainment at Unit. The next featured curator here of the shelf is Akiko Wakana, who nearly brought me to tears with her sentiments that she shared about curating her shelf. She is an editor and writer with Seikosha Books, and she has been involved in many books. I looked at her bibliography, and they are too many to mention. Books about travel, books about food, books about areas of Tokyo, books about the places between cities and the mountains, books about books. And what she shares here is so endearing. She says, "When I'm worried about work, I remember a book and take it off the bookshelf. Then I turn the pages and look for the word. The book has many folds, so it takes time to find where the word that I'm looking for is. But I remember which line it was in the open book, so I follow the surrounding area of my eyes. When I find it, the words I already know by heart are written there. As long as a man makes an effort, he will be confused." She's quoting Goethe. "I'm naturally a confused person, and I'm always worried and confused about my work. I spend most of the time worrying about creating a book. Should I write it like this? Is that article necessary? Wouldn't it be better to show it to the reader like this? Whether I'm on the train or eating a meal, my head is full of the book I'm currently writing. Even though I'm confused, I have a deadline, so I make progress, but by the time it's finished, I'm hit with a sense of helplessness. Oh, it didn't work again. And when I'm plagued with self-loathing, I remember Goethe's Faust. There I found the words of God speaking to the devil, and I felt relieved that my wavering was proof that I was trying my best, even if only for a little." How gorgeous is that? And then I put the book back to the shelf and I forget about it until I take it out next time. For me, books are something that encourage and support my life. Oh my gosh, that is so sweet, and I can completely relate, and probably you can too. She has an amazing list of books here. I'll read off some of them. My Wings by Junzo Shono, Rilke's Grave by Isaku Yanihara, With Giacometti by Isaku Yanihara, a classic memoir. Yanihara was Giacometti's model and confidant in Paris. His essays capture both the artist's philosophies and his own reflections on art and being. Running in the Spirit Wind, and finally Faust by Jonathan Wolfgang von Goethe. Goethe's masterpiece from 1808, a cornerstone of world literature dealing with ambition, desire, knowledge, and redemption. Faust is repeated throughout these lists. Hugely influential in Japanese literary modernism. So thank you, Wakana Akiko-san, a great list. Your vulnerability that you shared with us about second-guessing your own work was inspiring to me. The fact that you're struggling means that you're doing your best. Thank you for sharing that. Next up is Hitoshi Okamoto, who is an editor who worked on many different famous magazines that you know, Brutus and others. He's got a great looking list here, and he has a very fun looking Instagram called Man in Cafe. And I want to read some of his sentiments here. He's written some endearing ones. Sadly, none of his own works are on this shelf, but he has written My Guide to Kagoshima, My Guide to Kagawa, and My Guide to Okayama. These are all amazing places that I highly recommend you visit. If you haven't, they are in the Seto Inland Sea, where there is tons of artistic inspiration to be had. If you've been to Japan and visited Tokyo and Kyoto and Osaka, it is time to go to Kagawa and Kagoshima and Okayama, some very beautiful places off the beaten path. Okamoto says about his selection of 10 books, "There have been many books that I bought because I was interested in them at the time. But when I think seriously about these books, they have unconsciously become guideposts for my later life, and I realize that they are surprisingly new. These books I still reread from time to time. When I was younger, I didn't realize that books aren't meant to just be read once and forgotten, but that they should be kept by your side forever. I wait patiently until the moment comes when I feel like a book I've long forgotten is inviting me to read it now. It's so sweet. Some of the books that he's put on here are Lonesome Cowboy by Yoshi Okamoto, who is a Japanese novelist famous for pop culture infused stories about motorcycles. Okay, we love motorcycles on Tokyo Record Style. Americana, I'm American. And modern youth. Lonesome Cowboy fits his fascination with American mythologies. Again, more Goethe, Moomins, and the Finnish writer Tove Jansson is also listed on Okamoto's list. The Wall, The Crime of Mr. S. Karma by Kobo Abe, one of Japan's greatest avant-garde writers. So a very fun and cool list. Again, I will leave all of the books on Okamoto's list in the show notes. And this lovely snow globe here. Okay, this has become a rather ambitious video. What we thought was going to take 15, 20, 30 minutes to make is probably becoming a full feature length. And I will come back and show you part 2 here later when I can come back and have a little bit more time. I want to be mindful of Shin Saka Bashi's customers, and they're getting to be more plentiful as the afternoon is moving on. So with that, I will say I'll see you back here for part 2. Hey there, record-loving friends. Pay no attention that it is a week later. I've worn the same clothes for continuity, but we are no doubt in the second half of this ambitious video about Shin Saka Bashi Bookstore. I'm back here on another Saturday to share with you a little bit more of this store and some of the amazing discoveries I have made here. I want to send a very big thank you to Kitamura-san. Kitamura-san, arigatou gozaimasu, who has been very kind to host me 2 weeks in a row. I commandeered her space and she's been very gracious to host me here, and we've had some really nice conversations. She also gifted me a book from Tezuka, the owner, and I wanted to also say a big thank you to the shop. Tezuka-san obviously is a very interesting character who I would like to know more about. He has brought together an incredible group of artists and creatives and editors and writers, authors and artists, and I feel really blessed to have come into his space. It was very kind of the shop to gift me one of his books, Baking Brands, Life is Endlessly Delicious. This is about his journey into the culinary arts and cuisine, and I'm very excited to get into this one. This bookshop actually has an interesting space. There's actually a kitchen here in the back, and a lot of the books that we have discovered on the shelf are tangentially connected to cuisine. And that's to say that really all aspects of culture and Japanese sensibility, and actually not only Japanese sensibility, but just the things that make our lives more beautiful and more interesting can be found everywhere, and food is one of them. So a very big thank you to Shin Saka Bashi Bookstore, to Kitamura-san, and to Tezuka-san for welcoming me into this space. So since the last week that I was here, I got to share with you some of the luminaries that have curated these various shelves, and today I'm going to share with you some more of them. But as you know, each of these shelves that we're exploring is an interesting person within the Shin Saka Bashi community who has curated essentially 10 books for us to read about how to become more read people, more rounded people. And one of the books that kept popping up again and again is Tanizaki's In Praise of Shadows. I've seen it on, I think, 3, if not 4 of the shelves in here. And I took the opportunity since the last time I came on to read this, and wow, this is an incredibly interesting book. Very insightful into Japanese aesthetic, all about how light and shadow inform the Japanese sensibility of art, design, philosophy, literature, and perhaps even identity. I can't recommend this book enough. I went off on it on a very in-depth live stream just last night, actually, and you can go dig for it. I'll leave a link to it in the show notes. But In Praise of Shadows, we may even come across it again here in our next exploration of 9 more interesting characters. And I do not want to take too much of Shin Saka Bashi's time, and I know that the customers are going to come in here soon. It's a Saturday. The heat has relented a little bit, and it's a nice day. And so without further ado, let's get into it. So the first of the 10 book curators today that I want to feature is Haruo Iwasaki. Iwasaki-san is from the world of business, a world that we creative type don't particularly love going into. And that is one of the reasons that I was particularly impressed to find his selection of 10 books included here amongst adventurers, chefs, authors, and artists. Iwasaki-san is a business person who runs a company with the acronym RHRB. I had to look this up. RHRB stands for Reimagine How to Run Business. And he has been in the business and trading and investment and management world for over 35 years. And he introduced a new overseas wage system as the chairman of the labor union. He was been stationed in Hong Kong. He also lived some time in Milan, and he helped to translate Humanistic Management by Brunello Cunichelli. I'm in a constant state of being inspired by details all around me, whether they be graphical or colorful or musical. I constantly am picking up inspiration that I see at every corner. I've only met on a few occasions those among us who are as infatuated and interested in numbers and in math as my personal accountant and possibly as Iwasaki-san. My accountant gets really excited and creative and impassioned by bookkeeping and managing my books, and he approaches the support of managing my business with a very enthusiastic and creative flair that I think I have in my own creativity, and I felt like I came across that same sensibility in Iwasaki-san's selection of 10 books. I particularly love what Iwasaki-san wrote in his artistic statement here, and I'm going to read the Google translation for you. A human being is as tiny as dust in the vast universe, and his or her life is only a moment compared to the history of humankind that spans more than 2 million years. What is the meaning of life for such a fleeting existence? Feelings of joy, sadness, hope, despair? When I was a student, says Iwasaki-san, and I no longer knew the reason for my life, I came across Kant's words, the starry sky above me and the moral law within me. After I became a member of society and I spent many years in the business world, I felt like I was always thinking about the meaning of human life. All of the 10 books I chose are books that taught me about the meaning of human life. The deep insight and love of human beings by Goethe, the poet, the politician, the rule and failure of successive Roman emperors, the grand perspective that overlooks the history of humanity over a span of millions of years, the importance of justice for human beings who are social animals, and the young people of America, he mentions, who have lost their frontiers, who are frustrated and despairing at the reality of the adult world. The economy is only part of human life activities, not the whole of it. The market does not teach us the meaning of human life. I selected these 10 books with the hope that in today's world, where uneven distribution of wealth, poverty, and environmental destruction are accelerating, each and every business person will deeply consider what it means to be human. So I really respect Iwasaki-san's human approach here to business. It's inspiring and aspirational. So I salute you, Iwasaki-san. Some of the books that he's put on his list here are Faust by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, The Story of Romans, Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, A Theory of Justice by John Rawls, Justice, What It Means to Do the Right Thing, The Meaning of Your Life, How Do You Live, The Sound and the Fury by Faulkner, The Old Man in the Sea by Hemingway, and Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. I was really impressed with this list and, again, delighted to see it amongst these other creative types. He has his Theory of Justice book, his 10-beam balance scale of justice, and other motifs that are strong in the business and world of humanity. So thank you, Iwasaki-san, for that great list. These are the kind of books that we are going to discover. If we read these books and all of the 10 books that these other luminaries have put forth, they may make us more well-rounded people. So once again, Iwasaki-san, thank you. And moving on, from business and justice, we go to Yoko Hiramatsu-san, who is an essayist and who is talking about health and mindfulness and food and cuisine. And she also gave a very poetic artist statement that I want to read to you. Sometimes, though it is undeniably your own body, you may feel as if it is something distant or alien. It may be awkward, uncooperative, or just seem clumsy compared to others. As a child, I remember the exhilarating moment when when I threw myself into running with all my strength. But as an adult, I rarely engage in reckless physical movement anymore. And yet I want to keep testing what my body can do. As we grow older, we may give up on movement due to injury or weakness. But does it have to be that way, she asks. I believe the body and the mind should not be separated. It is not about which comes first, thought or movement. Rather, always be interwoven. The body and the intellect have always been intertwined. So, I want to continue searching for ways to connect thought and movement. Even if it isn't a conscious effort, just one step of walking could be the beginning of connection. Words and thought dwell in the body. Different words of thought call on different kinds of movement. Movement and thought can resonate with each other. That resonance produces words. The books I've chosen here are the ones where words, thought, and body are inseparably linked, bound together in deep ways. Wow, these are the kinds of books that I want to read. Of her books are When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalaniti, a memoir by a neurosurgeon facing terminal cancer at the age of 36, a profound meditation on mortality, vocation, and what makes a meaningful life. The Funeral Party by Ludmila Ulitskaya, a Russian novel set among immigrants in New York City, explores the death, art, and exile with warmth and humor. A Tale of Pilgrimage by Hiromi Ito, poetic and personal account of walking the 88 temple pilgrimage in Shikoku, and it blends diary, literature, and reflection on aging, gender, and spirituality. The Hidden Half of Nature, the microbial roots of life and death, When Eels Return Home, this book that's featured right here. What's this one about? Swedish memoir intertwining the scientific mystery of the eel with the author's relationship with his father. Interesting. I have not read this. By Patrick Svensson, a unique blend of nature writing and personal story. Henry David Thoreau, Lessons from the Wilderness. Water, Revisited, Kishimoto. The Body is Media, and more. A great collection of books by Hiramatsu-san. Thank you for that. Mindfulness, the mind-body connection. Another facet of humanity that you can find in Shin Saka Bashi Bookstore. Okay, the next curator, and I'm calling them all curators, even though they are authors and artists and designers and creatives. I feel like we are in a space of curation, and you'll notice in this one, the polar bear, the carabiner, and some relief maps. This one really spoke to me. This one is by the photographer Naoki Ishikawa, and he is the only member amongst this exhibition who is younger than me. He's 1 year younger than me, and I became aware of him some years ago when I saw an exhibition of his at Tokyo Opera City, a very impressive exhibition of his work as a photographer and as a mountaineerer and as an adventurer. Ishikawa-san was born in '77, and in 2000 he participated in the Pole to Pole project, a human-powered journey from the North Pole to the South Pole. In 2001, he became the youngest person to climb the highest peaks on all 7 continents. He's interested in anthropology and folklore, and a lot of his work not only explores the aspects of mountaineering and adventure, but of the cultures that you meet along the way. In 2011, he won the Domon Ken Award, which is like the Pritzker Prize of Photography in Japan. In 2020, he also won the Japan Photographic Society Award, among many others. His statement that he's offered here is really inspiring. He says, "Reading can turn your everyday life into an adventure. It feels like something I might have read when I was a young boy. Here are 10 books that can help you do just that." And his books are very interesting. Songlines by British author Bruce Chatwin is a masterpiece of travel literature. Songlines are the maze-like trails that the Australian Aborigines call the footprints of their ancestors. The Aborigines sing the names of everything they encounter along the way, bringing them to life and creating their own world. Chatwin, the author, sets out on a journey to follow in the footsteps of these natives. His writing is not merely a factual travelogue, it is interspersed with fragments of dreams and messages, and he eventually comes face to face with the question, why do people wander? I have been wandering my whole adult and perhaps childhood life. Why do we wander? Ishikawa-san says, I have been traveling since I was a teenager, and I am soon approaching the age when Chatwin wrote songlines. I am about to embark on this journey, but I still can't find a clear answer to the question, why do I travel? A question that is also intriguing me, Ishikawa-san. The books of Michio Hoshino, Tomosuke Noda, and Naoki Uemura give me clues to these questions. I was so encouraged by the words and footprints they left behind. From my late teens to my early 20s, it was because I came across these books that I chose Alaska and the Himalayas as my travel destinations. And now, even a quarter of a century later, that journey is not over. Gosh, Ishikawa-san, that is incredibly inspiring. I hope you continue to inspire us with your works and your photography and your storytelling. Some of the 10 books that Ishikawa put forth were Songlines by Bruce Chatwin, Yukon Drifter by Tomosuke Noda, some famous Japanese travelers and adventurers that I didn't know well about. Dersu Uzala's Expedition by Arsnevyev, which was later adapted into an Oscar award-winning Kurosawa film. Yuichi Igaya, The Prototype of Man, The Rationalist Natural Man by Hiroshi Takada, Phantom Africa, The Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, something I read in high school, The Golden Fish by Leclisio, 18 by Shinro Otake, experimental art book by contemporary Japanese artist Shinro Otake, known for his scrapbooks and eclectic visual style, a highly personal and avant-garde work. You can imagine the breadth of interest that Ishikawa-san has and the contemplative nature of venturing and wandering and exploring. So I love how that is reflected in the books that he put forth. Youth in Mountains by Naomi Uemura, memoir of the legendary Japanese adventurer Uemura, chronicles his early mountaineering feats and his philosophy of courage, solitude, and exploration. Alaska by Michio Hoshino-san, photography and essays, a Japanese wildlife photographer who lived extensively in Alaska. Wow, I'm very inspired, and I'm definitely going to pick up some of these books and explore some of these authors. So thank you, Ishikawa-san. Great, amazing, curated shelf here of books at Shin Saka Bashi. This bookstore is just so cool. It has such interesting people attached to it. And talk about a luminary. This next curator is named Yoshi Kitsuji. Tsuji-san is a legendary person I've come to find in the culinary arts. He was born in Osaka in '64, moved to UK at the age of 12, and became the principal in 1993 of the Tsuji Culinary Institute. You will see the name Tsuji on several of the books. The Japanese cooking, some of the Japanese Bibles of washoku and Japanese cuisine are written by him, and I'm told maybe his relatives. The executive producer of the Leaders' Dinner at the G20 Summit in Osaka in 2019. He's served as a judge chef for the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry, and Fisheries, honoring the program Cooking Masters. And he's a member of the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage Registration Review Committee for Japanese cuisine. In 2018, Tsuji-san was awarded the French National Order of Merit Chevalier. His books, among others, include The Technology of Fine Cuisine and The Unknown World of Washoku. He asks in his statement, what does it mean to eat? Furthermore, what is the meaning of gourmet cuisine to humans who cannot live without eating? In response to this proposition, the French gourmet Brillat Savarin, who somehow managed to survive the tumultuous years of the Revolution, wrote The Praise of Gastronomy. 200 years have passed since this book became the starting point of the gourmet theory that continues to this day. Now, books on the themes of food and gourmet cuisine are published all over the world by experts in a variety of fields. While eating is essential for survival, surely the culture of fine cuisine, Tsuji-san asks, is something that humans as humans need, just like other artistic and cultural endeavors. I absolutely love that, and it remixes my thinking about gourmet cuisine. Among the 10 books that Tsuji-san has curated for his shelf are Japanese Cuisine, A Simple Art by Shizuo Tsuji, a relative of his. Reading Brillat Savarin's Praise of Gourmet, also by Shizuo Tsuji. This is a really interesting interesting phenomenon that the Japanese do so well. They travel the world and bring back cultures, critique, interpret, and philosophize about them. And many of the books that you will find in here are actually synthesis, analysis of other books that have been brought over. Somebody has taken Brillat Savarin's In Praise of Gourmet, not somebody, Shizuo Tsuji-san, and has interpreted it for a Japanese audience. And the title of the book is Reading Brillat Savarin's In Praise of Gourmet. Tsuji Shizuo, one of Japan's most influential culinary educators, bridges French gastronomy and Japanese perspectives. The history of French cuisine and criticism, from the birth of restaurants to the present. The history of Japanese food culture by Naomichi Ishige. Japanese cuisine and Japanese culture, the social history of Japanese cuisine by Nobuo Harada. Fish and the Japanese, the economics of food and jobs. The History of Food, volumes 1, 2, and 3, which I can see here as rather small books. I've seen them published enormous in other languages. Field Notes for the Future of Food, Aiming for the Third Plate. Eating and Thinking by Tatsufumi Fujiwara, and What Does It Mean to Be Delicious by Hisao Nagahigashi. An amazing collection of books, not about how to cook, but about the philosophy of cuisine and the philosophy of gourmet cuisine. Tsuji-san, you have inspired me to pick up some new books, not necessarily recipe books, but books that will help me understand more deeply the philosophy of washoku, the art of Japanese cooking. So thank you so much. Okay, next I'd like to introduce you to two more artists, graphic designers who are loosely connected. I read one of their names in the other one's bio. So first let me introduce to you Tamatuyagi. He is a designer and art director who lived in San Francisco for many years. Since 1984, he worked for the apparel maker Esprit. And in 1990, he became a member of the Alliance Graphique Internationale. In 91, he established his own firm, Tamatuyagi Design, in San Francisco. And in 1995, more than 100 of his works were collected by the San Francisco MoMA. That's remarkable. I saw some pictures of him online, and he has an exquisite collection of fine art, beautiful home collection of furniture, and an exquisite world. He surrounded himself with beauty, some of which was collected by the MoMA. In 2009, he relocated his studio to Sausalito. He also worked on Japan House in Los Angeles. He's also worked for Toyo Ito, a Pritzker Prize-winning architect here in Japan. He is connected to the Museum of Contemporary Art here in Tokyo. A long list of very influential collaborators. And in his statement, he says that when he moved from Tokyo to San Francisco in '84, bookstores was where he encountered new things in an unfamiliar city. Sometimes he would discover the works of European or New York artists in bookstores and even reach out to them by fax after being inspired. Even today, many of the books on his shelves are by friends. And through his books, he's been able to learn about their work and their personalities. He selected these works related to his work, to design and to art, and to all of those connected to nature and food and areas where he's received influence from his friends. Cy Twombly, a monograph of the influential American painter known for his gestural calligraphic style. One of the profile photos that you might see of Yagi-san is of this beautiful work, I think, by Twombly. Louis Bonnet, a collection of works by the Swiss-born Los Angeles-based artist. Lots of Los Angeles, that's really cool to me. A Food in Vogue, a visual history of food photography. Esprit, a making of an image that chronicles Esprit's iconic design and branding. That was something that I grew up with in the 80s and 90s. It was everywhere, celebrated for its clean, modern aesthetic and strong visual identity. Eiko by Eiko Ishioka. Le Corbusier, collected writings and works of the pioneering Swiss-French modernist architect, a cornerstone of the 20th century architecture and urban planning. Le Corbusier, who is the godfather of modern architecture. Yannis Cornelis, Greek-born Italian artist associated with the art movement Arte Povera. I need to study up about this. Known for integrating raw materials, coal, iron, burlap, fire into his work, redefining sculpture and installation art. There and Back, Photographs from the Edge by Jimmy Chen. Not sure I caught this one. A book by the climber, skier, and an Academy Award-winning filmmaker. Features breathtaking photography from exhibitions around the globe, capturing human resilience and the sublime beauty of nature. Ooh, oh, this is it right here. This looks fantastic. Wow. There and Back, Photographs from the Edge. Okay, when I'm finished this, I'm definitely gonna pick up that book. Okay, and secondly, we have Tadahiko Okazaki-san, born in '69, graduated from Kofu University, and later studied industrial design at California, also College of Arts and Crafts, receiving a BFA, and he worked for Tamatuyagi Design. And in 2003, he joined Familia Creative Agency, eventually serving as the executive officer, a position he's held since 2011. His collection of books here are quite fun. You'll notice the guitar player and the guitar necks. His books are really interesting. Obviously, Okazaki-san is a guitar player. Some of his books include Norman's Rare Guitars, 30 Years of Buying and Selling and Collecting, Mid-Century Modern High-End Furniture in Collector's Interiors, I Want to Spend the Rest of My Life Everywhere, With Everyone, One-to-One, Always, Forever, and Now by Damien Hirst. This one looks really interesting. Drop Out and Have Fun. It sounds like a little bit like Timothy Leary and Ken Kesey. Unlocking Creativity, A Strategy to Release Team Potential. Let My People Go Surfing, The Education of a Reluctant Businessman by Yvonne Chouinard. Autobiography and Business Philosophy of Patagonia's Founder, Advocates Environmental Responsibility and Corporate Ethics. And Business Lessons from the Grateful Dead by Barry Barnes. An unconventional business book drawing lessons from the Grateful Dead's innovative community-centered approach. Grateful Dead. I love it. Okazaki-san, Yagi-san, 2 great lists. 20 amazing books of music, travel, art, and creativity. A great list. Okay, folks, 3 more. Dun, 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 and then we're done. Okay, moving right along. What an interesting looking shelf we have here from Kotaro Takitsuru. You'll notice the whiskey bottles, both here in the front, some smaller ones, a big one in back, and this one here, and all the books seem to be about whiskey making. Now, you know that Japan has become quite known in recent years for their exquisite single malt Scotch and Japanese aged whiskey. Sadly, I am a 10-year graduate with a PhD in whiskey and now sobriety. So I am no longer partaking in the fine way of the whiskey. However, this is a very inspiring story. Takitsuru is a descendant of Masataka Takitsuru, founder of Nikka whiskey. His grandmother was Scottish, and his grandfather, Masataka, was the first Japanese person to study in Scotland. So we are getting really to the roots of whiskey here. He also is on TV and he works with brands and helps to strategize and consult with promoting initiatives such as town revitalization, regional branding, and creative work. He serves at the Tama Art University. He has an interesting perspective on his creative sensibility, a lot that he riffs on from Ando, from Tada Ando, who is a luminary architect here in Tokyo. 4 of the first books from his shelf are all by Ando-san. He says here about Ando's sense of security and design thinking. When architect Tadao Ando said, "If I'm going to live another 5 years, I must live strategically," I was struck, says Takitsuru-san. And I reflected upon myself, also approaching 50, and realized the importance of thinking and living strategically. That period overlapped with my time studying globally renowned modern architect Tada Ando. Through Ando's unique philosophy and execution rooted in individuality, I was able to re-examine my own way of thinking about architecture, health, and life. He goes on to describe whiskey as a Japanese cultural asset. The Nikka Whiskey Yoichi Distillery in Hokkaido just celebrated its 100th year anniversary in 2023. Takitsuru-san says, "My grandfather, Masataka Takitsuru, said that whiskey making takes 20 years, 30 years, and soon 100 years. He was the first Japanese to study in Scotland in 1920. As Japanese now gains attention for its whiskey on a global stage, I believe it's my mission to continue the legacy and passion of Japanese whiskey, not only in Japan but worldwide. I hope to play a role in making Japanese whiskey, born from unique climatic and geographical characteristics, a globally recognized cultural asset over the next 100 years." About design and sustainability, Takitsuru-san says, "In this era of rapid environmental change, design must be rooted in the local environment. As global issues grow increasingly complex, sustainable design must be realized through local production and local consumption and deep community-based activities. I believe true sustainability lies in honest human scale effort. I really love this. One person planting one tree. When every designer deeply understands this and puts it into practice, I believe the future of the earth can be shaped by the ideas and execution of design. So some of the books that he puts forth are Tadao Ando's Living Architecture, again, Ando's Process and Idea, The Trajectory of Dreams, and Creating Work, all by Ando-san. About whiskey, some of the books include Whiskey Rising by Stefan by Eichen, Masan and Rita by Olive Checkard, the story of Takamasa Tokoan, the father of Japanese whiskey, and his Scottish wife Rita, a tale of cross-cultural love and the birth of Nikka whiskey. Whiskey and Me by Kotaro-san himself, Design Thinking Changes the World by Tim Brown, Why Does a Fork Have 4 Tines, and 6 Ideas That Have Changed the World by Stephen Johnson. Takitsuru-san, you make me want to drink whiskey again. Someday when my life has slightly less stress in it, it will be a chance for me to revisit the fine whiskey of Japanese heritage. So please give me a few more years and I will be back enjoying some of the Nikka whiskey. Again, a very big thank you to Shin Saka Bashi Bookstore. Their customers are coming in and they've been so gracious to have me. I don't want to be in the way and I really want to wrap this up. It's been so fun and I definitely want to come here more often. The last 2 artists here that I want to share with you are dignitaries in Japan. Fumio Nanjo-san is the curator and director of the Mori Art Museum. And Kohei Nawa is a very famous artist and sculptor, one of Japan's most celebrated artists. Let me tell you what I can about them. A little bit out of my league. I'm not sure I would feel comfortable even having a conversation with them, but they seem very motivated, driven, interesting people whose recommended book list would be well worth reading. Nanjo-san began his career in international cultural exchange in '74. He established and managed ICA Nagoya in '86. Since 1989, he's worked as a freelance curator. The year after, I began seeing his curated collections at Mori Museum. He became the deputy director. From 2020, he was appointed the senior advisor to the Mori Art Museum. He is also a special advisor to the Nita Arts Foundation and the Hirosaki Museum of Contemporary Art. Wow. Nanjo-san has said here about the books that he's selected, they've all had a lasting impact on him. The first 3 in particular influenced me during my 20s and continue to move me even today. I believe these are works that have expanded my perception of the world and of time and space itself. They ask fundamental questions about what it means to be human and then offer powerful insights. Reflecting on it now, he goes on to say, I realize I'm drawn to books that depict the world as something to be explored or questioned. Whether through philosophy, imagination, or scientific inquiry, they reveal the complexity of existence. And the 3 books that he mentions first are The Man of Fire, exploring artistry, identity, and creation. The Black Chalice by Kaneko, a poetic work by Japanese modernist and poet, often tackling themes of eroticism, existential struggle, and disillusionment in pre- and post-war Japan. The Outsider by Colin Wilson, a seminal 1956 book examining alienation and the outsider figure in literature, art, and philosophy, a cult classic that launched Wilson's career. Okay, I'm so unrefined and unsophisticated. I was very happy to see Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. I'm not sure if you can see it out there, but my motorcycle is out there. A very great one by Robert Pirsig. Philosophical novel from 1974, blending a motorcycle road trip with the reflections on quality, reason, and the balance between technology and human values. It's been 20 years since I read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. It's time to pick that one up again. Again, Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. After Finitude, an essay on the necessity of contingency. Good grief. Ai Weiwei on China's technical questions, a very interesting list, which I will leave all the notes to in the show notes. Finally, we have the very distinguished artist Kohei Nawa, who is known for his glass works, who is known for his depictions of deer. You've probably seen his works before if you're not immediately familiar with him. He's a sculptor, and it's amazing that he is among these 15 people who have curated books for us to understand why is life the way it is. One of the books that he's put forth. He is a sculptor and a professor at Kyoto University. Born in 75, he's only 1 year older than me. He completed his doctoral studies in sculpture at the Graduate School of Fine Arts at Kyoto City University in 2003. In 2009, he established Sandwich as a creative platform. He works based on the theme of perception and explores the physical and material world through various surface expressions such as beads and prisms. You've seen his works, that they're forms, but they have these beads and aberrations, and they're very interesting and conceptual, very cool. Highly awarded artist. In recent years, he's been involved in projects such as the art pavilion Kote. In 2015, he created the performance piece Vessel in collaboration with choreographer Damien Jalette, which has been performed both in Japan and internationally. In 2018, his sculptural work Throne was specially exhibited inside the pyramid at the Louvre Museum in France. At the Louvre, okay? His statement says, since the early 20th century to present, I selected 10 books spanning over 100 years. They range in genres including philosophy, natural sciences, spiritual science, essays, and science fiction. While diverse, all of these authors share a common point. They intensely contemplate and express the way they live and perceive the world. Among the books Nawa-san has put forth are Traveling with New Eyes by Bruno Latour, Life, Energy, and Evolution by Nick Lane, Water and Dreams, an essay on the imagination of matter, New Treatise on Division by Hiso Nakai, The Philosophy of Metabolism by Emmanuel Kochia, Humankind, Solidarity with Non-Human Beings by Timothy Morton, The Redemption of Thinking by Rudolf Steiner, and Star Maker by Olaf Stapledon, an epic science fiction novel from 1937, charting the history of life, consciousness, and civilization across the cosmos. Osukaresama desu. Wow, that was an amazing and ambitious challenge. Kitamura-san is giving me an ovation. Thank you so much. Arigatou gozaimasu. That was a really amazing exploration, and it's kind of reminding me of my Japan vinyl tag. It's one thing to just challenge people to put together a shelf of books or a collection of records, but to actually go into that collection and to get to know somebody by the music they put forth or by the books they curate for us is a really interesting way to not only get to know somebody, but to expand one's horizons. So I feel like even though many of these books are, most of these books are still on my list to read, I have something to keep my interests and my eyes occupied for the next long while. Everything from Where the Wild Things Are, to the history of Ferrari, to Damien Hirst and cooking Japanese food, from adventuring from the North Pole to the South Pole, from Giacometti, from Yoko Ono, and all kinds of amazing works. This bookstore, Shin Saka Bashi Books, is amazing. This was so fun. I just want to send a giant thank you to you for watching this all the way, and to Tezuka-san and to Kitamura-san and to Shin Saka Bashi Books community. Everybody has been very welcoming here. I really recommend you come and check out this bookstore. There is something for everybody. They put out some beautiful newsletters, posters, and more, and artworks. They can actually be hung on the wall. Beautiful pieces here. And each one is unique, and there's already a series of, I think, 3 or 4 or 5 maybe. This is another really interesting one. They coincide with, I think, the themes of the exhibitions and what's happening in the bookstore. And again, there's like probably some beautiful writings and maybe some short stories and essays and perhaps recipes and beautiful artworks on the inside. And they are designed by some of the artists that we met in this long journey. Here is another piece that's really beautiful, sort of like a mixed media piece. And this is all available for you to come and explore and take home with you, a little piece of this bookstore, in addition to some great books that you might find here. This one also was a cool design that was presented to me. It has the key image here of the book, drawing a picture here. And it's designed in a really imaginative creative way, something resembling some kind of Japanese origami type design. It might take me a moment to figure out how it goes back together, but yes, a beautiful explanation of this bookstore that is about subculture, photography, interior design, art, nature, cars, lifestyle, and philosophy. Shin Saka Bashi Books, thank you so much. This was so much fun. I really, really had a great time, and I really encourage you to come to Daikanyama. It's just a 5-minute or less walk from the station. It's on the big hill that takes you over to Ebisu. There's lots of interesting fare to have around here, and this bookstore is not to be missed. I want to say one last thank you to all of the artists and designers and editors and writers who put together this amazing collection of books. You filled my imagination with sparks of interest, and I just can't thank you enough. I had a great time. I'm getting a little choked up just thinking about it. It was so fun. So thank you very much, and until next time, I will see you at the bookstore. Bye. Okay, this is a little PS. This is a guilty pleasure. I found this book and I just want to share this book with you. It's such a cool book. I'm so blown away. It is Hello Goodbye, The Beatles in Tokyo, photographs by Shinpei Asai, who collaborated with Kamya-san on a recent exhibition. I was very happy to see this book. A Japanese legend who made this really amazing book that I would love to take home, but this is a very big collector's item. It's got this really robust box set type cover here with the pattern of the yukatas that the Beatles wore during their stay at the Capitol Hotel, I think. Shinpei Asai-san got to follow them around for the 2 weeks that they were in Japan, and these are the photos, and they are amazing. Just indulge me for a moment. Oh, this is even like ticket stub. That's what the ticket looked like from the Beatles concert, perhaps. And it's here as like a bookmark. I gotta share it with you, some of these photos. Oh, it's signed and numbered. This is number 1365. There they are on the airplane. That's the one that they flew in on. Here is a table setting. The Beatles. Oh, this is such a beautiful book. Coming off of the JAL Airlines with the yukatas around their person. Very happy to have arrived in Japan. In the car, they famously played, I think, 5 shows, and they couldn't leave their hotel room. They were so popular. Here they are at a press conference, and these photos are just great. Every little expression. I've never seen these photos before. Maybe a guard outside of their hotel room. Ringo with his cool sunglasses. Some presents for them in the presidential suite. I shouldn't go through the whole book, but there's George walking down the hallway, looking sharp in their suits. Paul with his Nikon camera. John with his sunglasses, Brian Epstein. And you can see the film grain here. It's color film, but it's got a beautiful texture that Shinpei-san was shooting, high-speed color film. And doing a good job because he's a master. A beautiful one of Brian Epstein. And every little detail, I just love it. I mean, if you can ever have an opportunity to get your hands on this book and have a peek, it is so cool. George with records at the hotel. I can see there's the motif that's the same one that's on the book. So yes, that ticket stub that visual must be similar to, I can see it right here. Their beds, they're sleeping in single beds. They're probably sharing a hotel room. George with his funky little circle glasses on. They're drinking 7-Up and having steak and beans and Coca-Cola. Wow, Ringo playing the shamisen. John playing the shakuhachi. Oh, wow. How cool is this? Have you ever seen this? Look at that. Oh my gosh. Just a few more. Oh, this is a picture of the artwork. There's a famous artwork that you've heard about. It's the only like 4-way collaboration between the 4 Beatles, and they made this artwork. I imagined it to be something a little bit different, but these are the paints that they use, and here is the work that emerged from the 4 of them, all working on a quadrant of the piece. They put this up for auction, and it went to a charity, the money that was raised by it. And again, it's the only time that the Beatles ever collaborated on a visual artwork together. black and white photos. There's the No mask, perhaps. I was mentioning No earlier. Brian Epstein, Ringo, George. Not so many pictures of Paul. Ringo always with his pinky rings. With their Chelsea boots, is that what they called them? There's John. Oh my gosh, it's just so supremely cool. I'm just happy to share it. Hello, Goodbye. Maybe you've seen it. Maybe it's a Japan only thing. There's the cops all getting ready to protect the Beatles at the Budokan, you know. Here is the outside of the Budokan. I brought you there on a number of occasions. And here they are playing their first show. There's a great band that welcomes them into the arena and they play a short set. It's only like a 40-minute set. They repeated this stage 5 times. And it's really interesting to go watch those YouTube videos because you can see like all the parents in the stand. There's nobody on the floor and the audience wasn't allowed to stand up. It is very interesting. There was a lot of controversy over them playing at the Budokan. Even though it was built in 1960 or something, it was connected to the emperor, considered a holy place and connected to Shintoism. And so there was a bit of controversy over them playing, but it was the biggest place that they could play in Japan. And these photos by Shinpei Asai are just so cool, and it's just an interesting peek into a moment of time. We all love the Beatles. I was just really thrilled to find this book. And I'm going to continue coming to this bookstore, Shin Saka Bashi, and maybe someday, if I can afford it, I will take this book home. Boy, how cool is that? Look at this one. Look at this little gal. She can't contain herself. She's standing up. She's going crazy for the Beatles, and the police officer telling her, sit down, sit down. So what an incredible book. 66. Come on in, guys. I'm just reviewing this book. Hello, goodbye. Okay, that about wraps her up, folks. Thanks for joining me on this Tokyo Record Style adventure. It was a blast. Till next time, see you at the bookstore. Bye. お疲れ様です。本当に終わり。Okay, すいません。